Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Bede. How are you?
Good, thanks.
What are we going to talk about today, Bede?
What we're going to talk about is the subject of what it means to be self-accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to first of all look at is we're going to look at what we normally mean by that, because people, in the West we consider self-acceptance quite important. Would that be true?
Yeah.
But what are we accepting? What we're told is, okay, you accept yourself with with your faults and your good points and your bad points, and you accept it. Now that sounds like a nice idea, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is that I have an idea of myself. So I produce an idea of myself. Well, I'm this type of person. I've got these good points and I've got these bad points, but I'm going to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So what that is it's an acceptance of an idea of myself. So I'm trying to feel good about myself, this self that I think that I am.
You have an image of yourself, which I could say is La La Land, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like I've got, let's say I'm factually looking at myself and I go, well, sometimes I get impatient, sometimes I do this, I've got good points, I've got bad points, but basically, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what we mean by being accepting in the Vedantic sense.
No.
Okay? It's just trying to make myself feel good about myself by giving myself an idea that really, in spite of everything, I'm acceptable.
I think it's I think what you're describing is very common, that people have an image of themselves and they make decisions based on what they think other people think of their image, whether they do or don't do an action.
True, but what I'm pointing out now is just simply this thing of trying to accept this person that I think that I am.
Yeah.
Okay? It is not being accepting in the sense that we mean it.
Yes.
Now, and I'll also show you how this is rather futile, because here I am. I'm in a situation where my mental states are completely chopping and changing every day. They're very unstable. One moment I'm happy, one moment I'm sad, one moment I've got moods, and I also suffer this underlying constant fear of annihilation or death. Okay?
Or criticism or public censure or...
Yeah, whatever. But that's also death in a sense. You know what I mean? Like in the sense that we don't want to feel diminished. We don't feel free from harm.
Mm.
And when so there's this fear of, I don't want to go too much into the dynamics of it, but just simply this, I'm fearful. Mentally, I'm not stable in the sense that, I can feel one thing one moment, the next thing a moment. And I'm also not being at home with myself.
No.
I hate being the way I am. Right now, in this condition, it is impossible to accept myself. That would be like trying to like it that I've got I've burnt my finger and trying to like the fact I've burnt my finger.
Mm.
It's just not possible.
Well, it certainly won't be stable. I think the effort will continue to try and accept yourself, but there'll be a struggle, because you'll find that you're always being challenged.
Right. So here we have a situation is that because of various reasons, because maybe I've read self-help books and stuff, I'm trying to accept myself.
Mm.
Now, trying to accept myself is entirely different from appreciating myself as acceptable.
Yes.
It's a fundamental difference, and this is what I want to go into. Now, Swami Dayananda makes a very interesting statement that the basis of self-acceptance is our understanding of Ishvara.
Yep, he does.
Okay, now, we've already gone over last talk. You see, with Swami Dayananda, what he's always trying to do is that he understands that unless we are at home with ourselves, we're not free of self-dissatisfaction.
No.
So being at home with ourselves is the only solution to self-dissatisfaction. If I'm in a condition where I hate being the way I am, the only remedy to that is I am being myself and I'm happy being the way I am. I'm at home with being the way I am.
Yeah.
Okay? Me trying to have conceptions of myself is not going to bring about this feeling of being at home with myself, is it?
No, because the conceptions will be constantly changing because of the environment, and that's in what you're describing.
Yes, and also when I'm trying to accept myself, it means that I don't accept myself, and then I'm in friction with that, resisting that, and then I'm trying to accept myself. So you have that subject-object split.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm trying, because the only reason I'm trying to accept myself is because I find myself so unacceptable. That's the fact.
And primarily, you've objectified yourself, haven't you? As an object.
But I don't want to go. I don't want to go into that right now. Let's just stick with the thing of just simply. I often find myself being unacceptable to myself.
Yeah.
And I try various things to fix it. Bragging, putting myself forward, thinking good thoughts about myself, telling myself I'm the self in the hope that I'm going to get rid of this self-dissatisfaction. All of these various methods I'm trying in terms of action and thinking to do something about myself.
Putting others down so I feel better.
Yep, all of that. All of this comes out. I've got various methods to try and feel at home with myself. If I put someone down, I feel a little bit better about myself. So I'm trying to be at home with myself constantly. Okay? And I'm trying to do it through thinking and actions. Agreed?
I think when you're doing that, you're probably more trying to avoid the self-dissatisfaction. The idea of being at home with yourself. I think
that's what I want. That's why I want to feel acceptable. I'm trying to feel acceptable so that I can deal with that. Of course.
Yes, and I don't think ordinarily people have an idea of I need to be at home with myself because they already think that's the problem.
But even then, you can't. Even then, I might say, yes, I want to be at home with myself. Well, so then I want to try and be at home with myself. So until I understand what it means to be at home with myself, which we've talked about in the previous talks, self-acceptance is just not a reality. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to Ishvara. What we have is that reality from which this whole world appears, by which this whole world is sustained, and to which everything returns. Okay?
Yeah.
And this reality we call God or we call Ishvara. Okay?
Yeah.
So this reality, the source of all existence that we see in the form of this universe is called Ishvara, right? That we've talked about that. Now, it's very important. You know how we said before that basically the Bhagavad Gita it contains within it a method to bring about and to show clearly what God is, what the world is, and what we are. And when we look at the world, what we know is that at any one moment, what I am looking at, it's very important to know what I am looking at, what I'm really looking at, not what I think I'm looking at, is that it's the presence of reality, the source of everything, right? the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. Now, I want to tease this out. Okay?
Yeah.
So first of all, what we're looking at is always looking at the presence of reality.
Yeah.
Okay? This is what you call the unity and diversity. The thing is that irrespective of the different forms that our experience is taking, it's the presence of reality in the form of this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Secondly, experience unfolds perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement. So let's just take an example of the weather. We'll find out later why this is important in terms of self-acceptance. But when you're looking at the sky and the sky suddenly becomes full of rain, or suddenly the weather becomes cold, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any control over that?
No.
Is it the result of what you're thinking or doing?
No.
Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So what happens is that the universe, but we can see, even though we don't understand all the incidentals, we can see that the weather works the way the weather works.
Yeah.
That seasons and changing weather is according it's according to this intelligent arrangement that it works the way it conforms entirely and perfectly with this intelligent arrangement, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the weather is conforming to an intelligent arrangement, isn't it? An order.
Yeah.
So the way the weather works, whether it gets cold, whether it gets hot, whatever, it's always functioning perfectly in keeping with its intelligent order, and it can't be anything else.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the thing is that it's not good or bad.
No.
It really isn't good or bad.
It's often seen as good or bad.
Yeah, from our subjective point of view, it is what it is.
Yes.
Okay, there's no moral judgment, is it?
No.
Okay. So it just simply works the way it works. We might not like how it's working. That's also perfectly in order, but we'll go into that in a minute. But
yeah.
The main thing is that first of all, we notice that as far as the weather goes, we don't cause it. It works just simply the way that it works.
Mm.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Just a minute. Now, secondly, in relation to it, we don't normally try to control the weather, do we?
No, but we can be frustrated about it.
True. That's actually, in one sense, an effort, a demand that it should be different. But
yes,
that's why we get frustrated. But we can't normally, because of the weather, we just put on our clothing, warm clothing if it's cold, and we don't give it much thought. We don't get emotionally upset about the order, do we?
No.
We just simply say, well, this is the way it works. Now, but you see, when it comes to ourselves, we have a problem, a fundamental problem with self-acceptance in this sense. Because I feel in the very core of me insecure and unstable, and I hate being myself, right? Because I have this feeling, what happens is I unconsciously or I form an image of myself that's rather ennobling. it's, you know, it's a nice picture of myself.
I certainly don't think it would be common to accept yourself as hating yourself. You'd find some sort of distraction just to avoid that.
What I do is I find I have an idea of myself, a concept of myself that I wish to embody. I want to become a good, acceptable person, and I have an idea of myself that way. I have a desperate need to be a good look in my own eyes.
Yeah.
And so I have this image of myself, don't I? Let's say I think I'm a very spiritual person. Okay? And this idea of myself gives me a tremendous sense of security. You know what I mean? It gives me the experience of being free from the underlying insecurity or the ever-present insecurity and self-dissatisfaction. Okay?
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that this beautiful idea of myself, this self-adornment that I really want to be like, okay, I feel I want to be it, and it protects me, doesn't it?
Yeah, you got to feel comfortable. There's a need to feel comfortable.
Well, hey, I have the experience of myself, at least I'm a lot more acceptable than the other. So it's a resistance to self-dissatisfaction. It's also a manifestation of self-dissatisfaction in the form of egoism.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then you come along. Yes, sir?
I just had a question there, because I was thinking, as you were speaking, I just thought, well, sometimes people aren't thinking they want to, you know, have an ego inflated image of themselves. Sometimes they just want to not feel the emptiness or the negative feeling. They just do things like they turn on the TV or they turn on the iPad or they.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about in terms of action and distraction now. I'm talking about egoism.
Okay.
Okay. I want to stick with egoism. There's other ways we defend ourselves, many, but this primary way of egoism is important in terms of this, in the subject of self-acceptance. Okay.
Sure.
So here I am. I'm thinking that I'm rather noble and spiritual. I'm a decent, loving human being, because if you're spiritual, you've got to be accepting and you've got to love everybody and you've got to welcome the whole universe and all that stuff. You know, all that stuff, right? I'm spiritual. So I've now got a spiritual conception too. That's very seductive, because if I'm spiritual, it's fantastic, right? Then you come along, Kevin, and you say to me, Bede, I think really that you are actually quite a vicious person. Now, suddenly what's happening is here's this balloon of egoism, do you know what I mean, which is acting as a defense. Suddenly this balloon has been popped.
Yeah.
Because you see, the problem with egoism, it has to be validated. That's why we have a compulsion to dramatize it. That's why we have a compulsion to brag and to be important and, you know, put ourselves forward. Okay? And then suddenly I'm thrown back into this self-dissatisfaction and self-discomfort, aren't I?
Yes.
But I'm not aware that the problem is the self-dissatisfaction and the not being at home with myself and the insecurity and fear, am I?
No, you'll blame me, and then you'll attack me.
Yeah, you can't help. I can't help but hate you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, but that's basically. So I want to seriously avoid criticism or attacks from other people. So here I am. I'm presenting myself to the world, hoping it's going to be a good presentation. Highly desirous of applause, but I don't want the boos.
No.
I'm afraid of the boos. Okay? But this problem, this is external, other people, right? A far greater problem is my non-acceptance of myself. Because the fact of the matter is, I criticize myself. I've become self-critical, and I want to examine that because, see, as far as Swami Dayananda is concerned, he understands quite clearly that the only way to be acceptable is to be at home with myself as I am without the craving to be different.
Yeah.
So the big question is, what does that depend upon? Okay?
Yep.
Now, so here I am. I'm feeling like I'm a very noble person, right? Very spiritual person, very intelligent person. You know, all of these noble qualities that I review occasionally to try and bolster myself up and protect myself from this self-dissatisfaction. And suddenly I'm aware of the fact that I have a very strong desire to sleep with my wife's best friend, my best friend, my best friend's wife. Now, the thing is that in this situation, I go, oh my goodness. So what's going to happen? First of all, I'm going to want to seriously deny this strong desire, aren't I? I'm also going to think that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to think that I'm bad because I have it.
Yeah.
Is that true? Now,
Yep.
so what's happened is that what's important to see here is that whatever reaction I'm having, whatever thoughts or feelings arise in me, they are the presence of God in the form of a functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. In this case, the psychological order.
Yeah.
Now, some religious people who are dogmatically religious would find this extremely abhorrent. But you see, whatever thoughts come into my mind, whatever feelings I have, no matter what they are, they're not right, they're not wrong, they're not good, they're not bad. They just happen to be there, just like the weather. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't see those feelings in that light, do I?
No.
Now, I'm not saying, you see, the right and wrong comes. If I act on that strong emotional sexual impulse, does that make sense? And actually sleep with my best friend's wife, that's wrong. See, right and wrong only refer to action, never to any state of mind. This is the most magnificent thing.
It doesn't relate to, right and wrong doesn't relate to thoughts.
No, or feelings, no. Or sensations, or desires.
Because you're not necessarily in control of what thoughts.
It's not even not necessarily. You are not in control of any of that. It's outside your hands. It is simply the operation of the functioning order.
But you can choose to choose your actions.
Your actions, yes. Not your reactions.
No.
Okay, so our reactions, we can't help. If my spouse does something I don't like and I feel that I want to wring her neck, that just simply arises. But the problem is, because I have this nice self-ideal, right?
Yeah.
And particularly if I have a spiritual ideal, I'm going to find every time if I find myself feeling strongly sexual, or if I find myself feeling hateful, those two things can threaten this noble sense of myself.
Yeah.
And then what happens is I become self-hating, don't I? So I'm judging myself on the basis of the thoughts and feelings that are arising in me. Is that true?
Yeah, but I don't know if self-hating is probably too severe. I think it's ultimately that's what you'll be doing, but you'll mask it in some way where you just try and push it back somewhere.
No, I'm using the term self-hatred for whatever. I mean, I hate being myself. Because what happens is, I want to feel noble and holy.
Yeah.
I see an angry thought. I then go, I'm a bad person. And then I go, I hate being like this. and I shouldn't be like this.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I say self-hatred, I use that as an actual fact. Human beings are self-hating. They are self-rejecting, Swami Dayananda calls it.
Mm.
Because of this kind of idealism.
So self-hating and self-rejecting are the same thing.
Same thing. Self-dissatisfaction, same thing.
Mm.
I am being like this and I hate it.
Yeah.
So from being angry, I'm now feeling bad about myself for being angry, because I think that I'm responsible, and I think that the feelings and thoughts that are happening in me are saying something about me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is what's really interesting. This is an extremely important understanding as far as Swami Dayananda is concerned. The functioning universe includes every thoughts and feelings. My thoughts and feelings that are arising in me are part of this functioning universe, just exactly the same way as the weather is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I actually see that this is the presence of God in the form of a strong sexual feeling to sleep with my wife's best friend, my best friend's wife. Oh, no, sorry, whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the presence of God in the form of anger.
Mm-hmm.
This is the presence of God in the form of envy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the presence of God in the form of boredom. This is tremendously different from I am being bored and I hate it.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sort of working on that a bit, because I sort of, well, let's say I have fear comes, I have a presence of God in the form of fear comes. I can see that may be useful in a situation. I've got to be alert. I've got to cross a dangerous trail or something. And I can see how that's different from being fearful, because one allows me to recognise I've got to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's not fear, that's caution.
Cautious.
Mm-hmm.
But the other is where I'm being ruled by the fear, overcome my self-identity.
I'm being the fear.
Yes, my self-identity and the fearful thoughts and feelings are one and the same.
Yes.
And that's a confusion.
Now, get this though. This is what's really interesting. If right here, remember we talked about, if right here, right now, as I am, I relax in the appreciation of the presence of God in whatever form he's in, including wanting to sleep with my best friend's wife, including my anger of wanting to wring my wife's neck, including feeling of boredom. If I relax in the appreciation of the presence of Ishvara in whatever form that he is taking, to the degree that I accept Ishvara in the form that he is in, I find myself relaxed in myself, at home with myself.
I think that's true.
You see, there's a big difference, isn't there, between seeing thoughts and feelings as good and bad, and accepting some and rejecting others, or becoming self-deflating, where berating myself for feeling angry or feeling sexual or feeling bored, or I shouldn't be like this, I should be holy, I should be enlightened, I shouldn't have thoughts and feelings like this. This self-criticism. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just simply being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara in the presence of whatever form that he's taking. Do you see the big difference?
I can see the big difference, but I can also see that when I'm resting in the lap of Ishvara, like the volume and quality of the thoughts change.
But that's not the point. I don't want to go into that. That's actually very true. But again, you see, we think, oh, it's nicer when the thoughts aren't there. That's good. What I'm saying is,
I know.
what I'm saying is, what we need to do is, the whole point is to be able to rest in the lap of Ishvara in whatever form he is in. Because if we have the sneaky little thing, well, I want to get rid of this, right? We're in trouble.
Yes, you won't be even possibly able to come to appreciation of resting in the lap of Ishvara with any rejection.
What Swami Dayananda refers to this is creating this distance between ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings. Now, some people have this approach that the way to handle our thoughts and feelings is to say, well, I am consciousness and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm the self.
I'm the self, but I'm the self, that teaching is actually to be contemplated, but you can only contemplate it if you're relaxed in yourself, so you have a contemplative disposition. Yeah. What resolves the psychological issue is the understanding of Ishvara.
Yeah.
So the whole point of is that the most important psychological principle that I ever learned from Swami Dayananda was that when I accept Ishvara, I discover myself as acceptable, at home with myself. In other words, here I am, I'm alive to facts, I'm resting in Ishvara's lap. Thoughts and feelings may be coming and going, but I'm looking at them just like the weather. They mean nothing. They mean nothing about myself. And you see, I always thought, because I used to have very turbulent thoughts, painful thoughts and emotions, and mainly I was very much enclosed in those types of things. You know, I thought the problem was my thoughts and my feelings. I really genuinely thought that I had problems with depression, I had problems with anxiety, and I had problems with hostility. I genuinely believed that I had these problems that I was suffering from. And here then I met this extraordinary Hindu monk who made it extremely clear that my problem in terms of self-acceptance was that I wasn't accepting Ishvara. So the basis of self-acceptance is when I gracefully receive whatever is here. When I gracefully accept and receive without resistance, I find myself relaxed in myself. Now, isn't this extremely interesting?
I think it's extremely interesting because I look at my life, and prior to understanding what Swami Dayananda meant by God, I used to try and think with the aid of hearing, Vedanta, trying to fix myself mentally or having right understanding or something like that. But then when I understood what Swami Dayananda meant by God, suddenly I found myself acceptable.
Quite.
When I was appreciating what Swami Dayananda meant by God.
Yes, when at any moment, if we're abiding in the appreciation of the presence of Ishvara, we are at home with ourselves. If we are not at home with ourselves, we're not appreciating the presence of Ishvara.
So in terms of, my self-identity, being at home with myself, it is only through appreciating the presence of God as Swami Dayananda means it.
Yeah,
Whereas thinking is helpful to sort of see how to improve my function and how to be helpful in situations or with people or whatever. But no thinking is going to help you with resolving your self-identity, being happy in yourself.
Yes, the thing is that you can't think yourself or do yourself into self-acceptance.
No.
Self-acceptance in the way that Swami Dayananda means it is the result of the appreciation of the presence of God. So it's the presence of God appreciated that gives us this feeling of being at home with ourselves. And this formally is called graceful acceptance. And you see, the wonderful thing about this is this. You see, we can come to Ishvara as we are. As we are. So right here, right now, as I am. Angry, sexual, hostile, bored, feeling empty, feeling confused, feeling frustrated, desperate. We can come to Ishvara as we are. And the moment we actually come to Ishvara as we are, the moment right in the middle of all this mess, we pause, and because we understand what Ishvara is, and we just suddenly, all we do is we simply appreciate his presence in the form that he's in. So it's an act of knowledge. It's appreciating what we've recognized, what we mean by God. We suddenly find ourselves being freed. It's not a question of do the thoughts go away or the feelings go away.
No.
We are at home with ourselves in the presence of those things, of those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And this is extremely important. So we've done no operation on ourselves. We haven't fixed ourselves.
No, Swami Dayananda, he's not keen on the idea of submarine Vedanta. I think he refers to it in Upadesha Saram, his book, Rama Maharshi, and he says thoughts aren't the problem.
No. Some people think that the thoughts are the problem, but what I also want to stress here is this relaxation that Swami Dayananda talks about. He says you can unwind yourself. There's a beautiful expression. We can unwind ourselves in the lap of Ishvara. This is the basis of a self-acceptance. And because we are finding ourselves and we're appreciating ourselves as acceptable, guess what happens to all the different forms of self-dissatisfaction?
They disappear.
In the lap of Ishvara, all of those different forms of self-dissatisfaction disappear. And we have this distance between ourselves and our thoughts. We haven't done all of this, I'm going to be an observer business.
I'm going to be in the what?
I'm going to be an observer of my thoughts and feelings to get rid of them. Because you see, that's true. What happens is when I'm in the lap of Ishvara, because I'm being a simple conscious person, there is a distance and I am aware of my thoughts and feelings. But I didn't bring it about by saying I'm going to be an observer of my thoughts and feelings.
No, that's the point. The important point.
That's it just doesn't work. And you see, Swami Dayananda says that it's not possible. You see, in order to contemplate the fact that being which everything is, you are, to be able to contemplate, to actually be being, which is the highest form of contemplation in Vedanta. You can't do this without a contemplative mind. And you can't have a contemplative mind unless there is a relative psychological resolution. It's not total. It's a psychological resolution in the sense of me as a psychophysical entity. I am feeling at home in myself, and feeling secure. My mind isn't shifting and changing at every moment. And this...
You don't have a compulsion to change people, situations in that.
Yeah, situations, I may have to take action to change situations, but I am not trying to change those situations to feel at home in myself.
Yes.
There's a big difference. It's like what he says, that you may desire to have a car. Or you may desire to have a car so you can feel good about yourself.
Mm.
You see, one is that you need a car and you need to travel, so you buy one, you get a car.
Mm.
The other is different. So the world is no longer used as a means to make me feel right about myself.
Yes.
Now, there's another interesting point here that he brings up, and it's this. It's Swami Dayananda's understanding of what love is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a bit, I mean, most people kind of have this idea that love is this gooey feeling, you know, oh, I'm just so loving.
Mm-hmm.
For Swami Dayananda, being loving is being accepting. So basically, it's, in another word, is accommodation, making room for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are accepting, my wife has done this, I want to wring her neck,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm completely at home with myself, accepting the presence of Ishvara in the form of what my wife has done and my reactions about what my wife has done, I am being loving.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says a very interesting thing. He says that the dynamic form of the basic person is, first of all, love. Okay?
Yeah.
And he says the second part is, he says, caring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, isn't this very interesting in terms of his understanding of what he means by karma yoga and a life of dharma?
Mm.
You see, when we look at our life, at any one moment, when I am being loving, that means I'm being accepting. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to be a nice person, right? It means that, first of all, I'm being loving.
Mm-hmm.
He says, love and care is the basic dynamism of the basic person. Caring is dharma. In other words, not harming, bringing the value, looking at my life in the light of dharma and responsiveness, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So love and responsiveness, this is the light. See, graceful acceptance is love.
Yes.
Responsiveness is dharma. Caring.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps you in harmony. See, graceful acceptance places us in the world as it is.
Mm.
Because when I'm being gracefully accepting, I'm not subject to psychological reactions.
No.
So I'm living, what Swami Dayananda says, I'm awake to the moment, alive to the moment by being myself. So graceful acceptance, being at home with myself in the presence of Ishvara, in the form, whatever form he's taking, puts me in the world as it is.
Yeah.
But then the world is constantly moving, and it's also the presence of God in the form of a duty to be done. So caring, so that my actions are keeping me in harmony with what is, with Ishvara.
Your actions are caring, non-harmful, beneficial, contributing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, non-disturbing. So what happens is that the thing is, now in the Swami Dayananda sense, when I am being accepting and I am being caring in the sense of my actions are being governed by what needs to be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm being a nice person. It's nothing to do with spiritual ideals. It is coming into a relationship with the world as it is and responding to that world as it presents itself to me in this moment in the light of Dharma.
People may experience you as a kind or nice person, but you're not kind or nice because you think you are.
No, it's not. There's no self-ideal here.
No.
In other words, it's a way of living. The whole point with the preparation for us to understand Vedanta is a way of living. And it's constituted by two things. Acceptance, being accepting.
Yeah.
And being caring in the sense of doing what's right.
And when you
So
use the word,
so
when you use the word responsive, responding in a caring way, you're meaning you're consciously choosing actions which are beneficial, contributing, and non-harmful, as
I'm
opposed to
conforming my actions to what I know would be the best thing to do. And this knowledge of what is the best thing to do is the light of Dharma. It's given to us, thank goodness. So, and this keeps me in harmony. So, first of all, I'm in harmony with Ishvara because I accept him in whatever form that he's taking. Okay? I have a strong desire to sleep with my best friend's wife. I accept that fact. Does that make sense? Without self-criticism, I'm at home with myself in the presence of the functioning order in the form of strong sexual desire. I then don't follow through. I don't act on that feeling because that would not be caring. That would be wrong.
But you're only going to be able to do this if you understand what Swami Dayananda means by Ishvara, what he means by God.
Unless you're abiding in the appreciation of the presence of God, and you understand what that means, you won't have the distance. You won't be able to. First of all, you won't be able to accept yourself. You'll go, oh, I'm bad. I shouldn't be feeling that way. So there'll be self-rejection. So, but the whole game is, first of all, graceful acceptance, being myself, at home with myself in the presence in whatever form that Ishvara is taking, then responding to what is happening in the light of Dharma.
So what you're describing there is karma yoga, but again, both that accepting receiving side and the responding side, which keeps you in harmony, both are dependent on the understanding of what God is, what Ishvara is.
Of course.
By what Swami Dayananda means by what they are.
Yes. So what happens is that what we have at any one moment is the presence of God as a fact to be gracefully received, and the presence of God in the form of a duty to be done. This is the lifestyle that Swami Dayananda unfolds in terms of what the Bhagavad Gita. This is the form that our life must take in order for us to be in harmony with the whole.
Yeah.
And if we're in the right relation to the whole, we become right in ourselves. That's the magic. That's Dayananda magic. If we're in the right relationship to what is, we become right in with ourselves without any psychological meddling.
Because sometimes I get the impression people see that karma yoga is having very strong commitment to gracefully receiving, accepting everything as prasada, as God, and a strong commitment to responding in a non-harmful, beneficial way. But they don't seem to mention that all of that is only going to be possible unless you understand what Ishvara is in the way that Swami Dayananda means that.
Quite. You see, the thing is,
Swami Dayananda says there is no karma yoga without Ishvara.
Yes.
And when he's saying that, he's saying you don't have to. It's not about having a construct or an idea about what Ishvara is. He's talking about appreciating Ishvara as a fact.
Yes. It basically means living a life in the appreciation of the presence of Ishvara. That's what it means. And Ishvara in the form of a fact to be gracefully received, and Ishvara in the form of a duty to be done. And you see, so it means living a life in relationship to Ishvara. You see, when we violate Dharma, we create a rupture between ourselves and Ishvara. Whenever we do something that's not right, we become disturbed in ourselves and in friction with the environment. So a commitment to karma yoga is a commitment to living in the context of God.
Yes.
Actually living the wisdom. You see, the wisdom is what God is. With that recognition, we become relaxed in ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the thing is that living that wisdom, you see, we're not trying to, Swami Dayananda says there's two things we need. We need the wisdom, and we need to live the wisdom. So our practice actually, and it's not really a practice, it's actually really living, is to, first of all, at any one moment, to receive gracefully what's happening. But you can't receive gracefully what's happening unless you're relaxing yourself in the lap of Ishvara. It's not possible.
No.
You can try to say, I'm going to try and accept this. I spent years trying to accept things. But being accepting in the presence of Ishvara in whatever form that he's taking, and being caring. You don't have to feel caring. You might not, you see, your spouse might do something you don't like, and you might feel like, right, saying something a little bit vicious. You ever had that experience?
Yes.
I have, all the time. Now, it's not a problem. That's not a problem. But if you don't, and you just act in a kind way, you do what you need to do, right? That's all that's required of us. There's no problem here.
But what matters is, in terms of action, is what you do.
The only thing that goes on the scoreboard is what you do. Because, you see, in terms of duty, you see, duty means giving what is due. That's where it comes from. So, when you're facing a situation, any situation, first of all, don't harm. That's the first rule. Don't harm. That was one of the first things that Atmaprakashananda told me. Just don't harm. The second thing is, you bring the value that's needed by action. You contribute. You make an offering to the Lord, in other words. You're actually, by understanding that what you're looking at is the presence of God in the form of a duty to be done, it's an offering, isn't it? When you contribute.
Yes.
And you don't disturb. And this is what keeps you in harmony with the situation, with God. It just keeps you in harmony with God.
Yes.
So this is the thing. But what I wanted to stress here is that self-acceptance is not, I'm this and I must accept this. This is ridiculous. You know, because I'm not really looking at myself. When I'm thinking about myself, I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking thoughts about myself.
You're just thinking, having ideas about yourself.
Yeah, they may be so-called true or right or true, but that's not the point. But that is not self-acceptance. When I'm being at home with myself in the lap of Ishvara, which is being at home with myself in the lap of Ishvara, in whatever form that he's taking. This is truly wonderful, because it stops all this self-idealism. Do you know what I mean? The conflict between what I am and what I'd like to be. That friction between what I am and what I'd like to be, and all of the stuff that happens between that. I mean, a lot of depression is caused because people berate. It's anger directed towards themselves.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of depression is caused by that. So Swami Dayananda's understanding of what God is results in a very thorough understanding of what it means to be acceptable. In other words, I'm at home with myself and I don't have this obsessive craving to be different from what I am, because being myself, I'm at home with it and I like it. I feel peaceful. So it's It's not. You see, and because it's truly good, and we love it. Does this make sense? We once we start to really understand what it means to rest in the lap of Ishvara, and we start to love it. This is what they mean by devotion. It's not some holy thing of I'm all religious. In other words, we love being in this relationship with God. And this is what they call devotion. And this is the only thing that frees us really from the passions for objects.
Yes. Swami Dayananda doesn't say his understanding of God isn't a faith. It's a fact to be appreciated.
Yes.
He says God is a fact to be appreciated.
Yes.
Ishvara is a fact to be appreciated.
Yes.
And how are you going to appreciate him? You have to be aware of what Ishvara in the way that Swami Dayananda means it.
Yes. So what happens is that at any one moment, you see, once you understand what it means to appreciate the presence of Ishvara and abide in that appreciation, whenever you feel yourself a little bit upset, you go, oh, and you pause, and it doesn't matter. You know, you might be, have you ever sometimes really felt upset and just kind of confused and in a mess? You ever felt that way?
Yes.
I used to feel that all the time. Okay. Now, I was never one of these cool, confident type people. I was a mess. Now, so right here, right now in the middle of it, I don't try and change any of this. I don't try and deal with this. I don't try and change the weather, do I? So instead of using my thinking and my actions to try and change myself, to do something about myself in this horrible condition that I'm experiencing, we're not denying the experience of emotional pain. What I do is I just simply shift into the appreciation of the presence of God. And what happens is this changes the relationship between myself and these feelings entirely.
Yeah.
As soon as I become at home with myself, of course, I cease to be those feelings. And I create this distance. And this is extremely important.
You don't create, it's the understanding that creates the distance. You don't create that distance.
No, yes. But of course. But the thing is that, so what happens is that we come to Ishvara as we are. This is the great thing. We don't have to dress up. We don't have to be nice. We don't have to be anything. As we are.
You may be nice as a consequence, but you don't, any thinking that you're nice won't assist you.
Yeah, well, you don't become nice. You just simply become at home with yourself. You become yourself, actually. In the lap of Ishvara, you are yourself. As an
you'll be able to perform actions unfettered. So there's no sort of...
I don't want to go to that right now. I'm just saying that what happens is that no matter what feeling state that we're in, it doesn't really matter in whatever feeling state that we're in. What's important is to come into it right now, right here, as I am. I come into relationship with Ishvara. And this is what frees me from being self-dissatisfied. You see, every form of emotional pain is a form of self-dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And so, go.
So when resting in the lap of Ishvara, I find myself, I appreciate myself as a conscious being. I find myself quiet, and it's full, but it's not unshakable, because it's only. But this is why Karma Yoga is so important, because it gives you there's no way you can understand the full picture of Vedanta without this relative resolution of my angst, myself being an angst person, wanting to change people and places and situations. That's right, isn't it?
It's not possible. So the whole the thing that I wanted to just clarify today is that it's very, very important to be able to understand that thoughts and feelings, no matter what they are not the problem. What is the problem is that we've ceased to be aware of the presence of God. The moment we become aware of our thoughts and feelings as the presence of God, we become at home in ourselves. And when we're at home with ourselves, the self-dissatisfaction goes, the psychological resistance goes, and we're then freed from reaction without any actions or thoughts on our part.
The only thing I might add there is that you said when you see the presence of thoughts and feelings, see thoughts and feelings as the presence of God, it's when you see everything as the presence of God.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
That's fundamental. At any one moment, what you're looking at is the presence of God in the form of a functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. Okay?
Yep. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, Kevin. Bye-bye.